Now, what to do with you?
Hey guys, Pete here. This week there was a lot of news and teaser stuff that came out for the back half of Better Call Saul's final season. Taken individually, there's not much to say about any one thing. So today I thought I would do a video that covers all of them in one place. I'm going with a different format here because I was talking with the Vivid Kiwi, who is a frequent guest on our live streams, and as we were getting into what we think all of this stuff means, it seemed like we could turn this conversation into a video. So Kiwi is here and we'll be speculating. If you're not caught up through Season 6, Episode 7, or you're just averse to speculation, then this video will have spoilers. But just to be clear, neither one of us has seen Episode 8 or have had it spoiled for us yet. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. All right, so Episode 608 was screened for a large audience in New York City at the Tribeca Film Festival last weekend. We weren't lucky enough to attend, but we did have a couple of friends of the channel who were there to see it early. And they report that it was a solid episode that keeps up with the intensity and pace of Episode 7. I haven't really heard anyone say too much that was negative about this. The reaction I've seen has been universally positive, we'll say. And there was also a panel discussion that had a lot of people talking about it because it was Peter Gould, Gordon Smith, Bob Odenkirk, Tony Dalton, and Rhea Seehorn all there to answer questions. And, you know, this is a crazy lineup. I can't imagine how much fun this would have been to watch a new episode with this many people in general. But then on top of that, have Jimmy, Kim, Lalo, and everyone else there in attendance. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, the Tribeca screening sounded like a lot of fun. I wish I knew about it in advance. I would have seriously considered going. I didn't actually hear anything about it until like the day before it happened on Better Call Saul's Instagram, I believe. But yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun, not only to watch Better Call Saul on the big screen, but to also, you know, be in the same room as all of these amazing people. I would have definitely just enjoyed the panel as a fan in general, as I've always wanted to go to like San Diego Comic-Con and see a panel by them or something like that. So it would have been just a huge bucket list moment. Hopefully there's something like that in the future, something else where, you know, we can see them on a panel. I'm not too sure how many more panels they'll be doing or anything like that.
Yeah, we're kind of running out of time, huh?
Yeah, considering the show's wrapping up. So I'm not too sure how many more opportunities there are for that. But yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah, and it sounds like there were also some interesting tidbits that came out in that discussion. I saw one poster on Reddit who copied down some of the things. I guess they asked everyone, you know, to sum up the final 6 episodes in just a short statement. And after a very long pause, Rhea Seehorn said that it's provocative and psychologically disturbing. Peter Gould said multichromatic, which, you know, that's interesting because obviously the Gene scenes are monochromatic, they're black and white, and this hints that that will be involved, or, you know, it sounds pretty heavily involved in those last couple of episodes. And Bob said it was going to be a second life, and then the poster put in parentheses, but you don't know what that even means. So I don't know if Bob said that or if that is added.
If that's just inferred.
Yeah. So, you know, I thought that was pretty cool. Did you hear anything worth mentioning from people who had been there? Have you seen anything that popped out?
Not necessarily. I had a few people message me saying that they were there, but they were very polite and didn't spoil anything, thankfully. I did briefly skim through Gil's non-spoiler podcast, and I'm just really curious about this multi-chromatic thing because I'm wondering if he's talking about the Better Call Saul timeline or if he's talking about the Gene timeline, like you said, because just to elaborate on that a bit, it's been just a huge theory ever since way back in season 1. You know, is Gene going to have color come back into his life? What is that going to symbolize exactly? And with Gene possibly reverting back to Saul and all that sort of thing, or maybe Gene going to prison. I did a video on that recently, or even maybe a Gene and Kim reunion. There's just so many options as to the routes that they could take this. I don't know. I guess I'm just glad that they didn't they said things that made us really start thinking about it, but not enough to truly spoil anything. So I think they treaded the line there pretty well.
Yeah, they're pretty good at it. And I did also listen to Gil from One Take, who's a big contributor to the live streams on that we do after the episodes here. And the big thing that stood out for me there was that apparently they asked Rhea Seehorn about how much Kim has been influenced by Jimmy and how much was what we've seen as her darker side, was that already there? And Rhea said that she personally really enjoys the conversation that happens around the question and likes that it's open to interpretation. She didn't really want to answer, but instead kept to things like how Kim is complex, she's a complicated character, and how interesting that makes her. Then I guess Bob swooped in and asked if he could answer that and said that, it was already there. She has a darker side, and part of why she seems so reserved in the beginning is because she's trying to hide that, or she has something to hide, I think is the way that they put it. But I that's the thing out of what they were saying that kind of stood out to me.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how Ray doesn't really want to give a straight up answer, but then Bob does.
I've read stuff that Bob's indicated that before in interviews, even before the season came out. So I guess that's his line, that he sticks to. I'd say pretty consistently, Ray's been the other way. I don't think they really said anything new here, but it is interesting, like you said, that he followed after her and basically answered the question that she didn't want to.
Well, the thing is with the character flashbacks for this show, the creators try to tread the line as to imply why a character may act the way they do, but they don't want to dumb it down to just this one specific moment pretty much summarizes the whole character and their motivations all at once. The reason why Bob probably swooped in and answered is because we got that Kim flashback in season 6, implying that maybe Kim did have a dark side to her as a kid or as a teenager. Who knows, maybe she could have conned with her mom, or at least having her mom as a con man in her life from a young age definitely influenced that dark side of her. And I think that's a part of why when she started to grow up, she realized that her life wasn't going anywhere. And then that's why she moved to Mexico to go on the straight and narrow and become a workaholic lawyer. Another example of the creators not really wanting to just dumb down a character to one specific moment was during one of the Chuck flashbacks when he was having dinner with Rebecca and Jimmy. When I think it was when Chuck says a joke that falls flat to Rebecca due to being jealous that Jimmy was really talking her up and having a good time. Apparently, originally after that moment, Chuck was gonna reach over and touch a lamp and have it shock him, implying that that's the moment that his sort of allergy to electricity started. But I guess they cut that because they didn't want it to be that specific and instead just left it a bit more ambiguous. So I feel like that's kind of why Ray didn't want to answer. They didn't want it to be too specific. But then again, we have gotten the Kim flashback, so that's probably why Bob swooped in and confirmed that, yeah, that dark side to her was already there and that Jimmy is just sort of reawakening that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've discussed it several times in the streams, and I know I do in my videos about people don't change like that. They don't change in an instant. It happens slowly over time, and that's why these characters resonate so much, is because they are complicated and they are like real people. And, speaking of characters, one of the biggest bits of news that came out of this was that Bob Odenkirk teased that there will be a character that's completely new to this universe, and they're going to be introducing this person in the last 6 episodes. He said it is a actor that will blow our minds, a great actor, and in his words, a classic of all time, which that sounds pretty impressive, except for it's an actor talking about another actor. So, it's pretty hard to speculate on. There's a lot of different people that could fit into that category. But I mean, it also seems a little late in the game to introduce someone who'll be key to the story that's never been in either show before. So, what was your initial take on this?
Yeah, so to be honest, I wasn't entirely sure initially. I guess with the whole Howard and Nacho situations being out of the way and, Chuck not being in the show for a while, there's room for new characters, which is kind of why they brought Lalo in to replace Chuck as being the main antagonist. It seems interesting that Bob implied it's played by a famous actor. Now, I've always been interested on what they do after sort of the Lalo Howard plot concludes with episodes to spare. So maybe this new character has to do with that. And as I was telling you behind the scenes, I almost don't want the show to end, and I wish there was time for another arc afterwards. As amazing as the Howard and Lalo situation is, I've always just had in the back of my mind, but what happens after? Is that going to take up the whole season? Are we going to have time for another arc? Is it just going to be kind of conclusion for where all the characters end up going into Breaking Bad? So it really just depends on how many episodes are left in the Better Call Saul timeline versus the Breaking Bad or Gene timelines, which again has been a popular topic of discussion, especially in the live streams. Bob acted like the new character would play a major role in most of the final 6 episodes. He could just be, trying not to spoil as to when the character actually does show up. Because for all we know, it could just be in a single episode, like a Gene episode, or this character could just suddenly, take up a main role for the following episodes of the Better Call Saul timeline.
Yeah, when we initially talked about this, I interpreted what he said as it almost had to be a cameo, like just an appearance, somebody who was recognizable and, that hadn't shown up before. So yeah, I was thinking, leaning more towards he might show up in a cold open or they, I should say. We don't know what the gender will be, if it's going to be a guy or a woman in this, but right. I mean, it's really hard to figure out where there's a lot of extra story that needs new characters, where, like my thinking has sort of been that this Lalo situation that they're and we'll talk about this a little bit more when we talk about the teaser, but I figure there's maybe 1 or 2 episodes there. I kind of think probably 2 for that plan to play out, and then maybe some, an episode of the aftermath or something like that. And then I'm expecting that they're going to move into Breaking Bad and Gene territory, some based on what they've said, that this isn't just wishful thinking on my part. I feel like that, they've kind of laid that out, that those things are going to happen. So I didn't think that he was saying that this was going to be somebody that would be, dominant in what happens in the last 6 episodes, but you kind of thought it was the other way around, that this was going to be someone who we were going to see a lot of.
Yeah, but again, I kind of do agree with what you're saying in regards to how much time do we truly have for another character to show up. It's kind of the same discussion as talking about more Breaking Bad cameos coming into play. Because although it would be nice to see all these other characters from Breaking Bad, or have a situation where maybe Tuco returns, unless it's just a single cameo, or even if it is just a single scene, the time with the show's running out and we have so many plot lines to conclude and so many characters to set up for the Breaking Bad timeline, and also kind of merging the timeline of the 2 shows. That
it is hard to imagine it, it does feel like we're running out of road here.
Yeah, so I mean, it just depends how much they can, pack into the final few episodes here without making it too stuffed or making it feel organic. And yeah, that's just the thing. There's just so much for them to finish already, that to add new elements to it just might not be as realistic as we initially hoped for. At least I hoped for.
Yeah, and I had no idea who it might be, and the first name that I saw out there was Vincent D'Onofrio. I guess apparently he added Peter Gould at something, and maybe he had been seen, at a premiere or something like that. I don't remember the details exactly. Then I saw the name Ron Perlman, who, for that same reason, that, he had been photographed with the cast, that he had attended the premiere, and those are both fine. I think they would fit an actor saying a classic of all time. I mean, they're solid performers, are memorable. People know who they are, right? But then I saw this thread on Reddit. It was posted by I Cooked the Blue Stuff. It brought up this other quote from Peter Gould, and, he says, "Just to give you a tease that I probably shouldn't, there's something in the season that you will know that we watch a lot of old TV." So, the obvious conclusion from that is this is someone who is a famous actor from old TV. In that thread, they brought up the fact that Carol Burnett had said publicly that she loves the show and she would like to be in it. and she actually lives in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I don't even know how much of a cultural impact she has for young people these days, but she's definitely like a titan of TV when it comes down to it.
I think it would be cool to see her in the show, but it would be kind of odd to choose considering that Jimmy did mention her by name in an earlier season to, I think, Rebecca, I believe. So it might feel weird having her real name mentioned in universe just to have her then play a character, unless she's going to play herself, which I don't know how that would work. My own prediction that I was thinking of, no way this is probably going to happen, but I wanted a Willem Dafoe cameo possibly as a detective, maybe looking into Howard's disappearance. I'm mainly just saying this due to the fact that I just watched American Psycho for the first time last weekend. Great film. And to be honest, there's just way too many actors to choose from, and I'm not incredibly cultured on the era that Vince and Peter usually pull from. We'll just have to wait and see, I suppose.
I mean, it's one of those things like when they show up, we'll know who they were talking about, and
Right.
It'll probably make sense, but I don't think we're going to get there. I mean, at least, I spent a little bit of time looking what people were saying because, like I said, I had no idea. To me, it was just like, well, that could be anybody. So I guess we could move on to this lab teaser. And I know you made a video about this, and I went looking for that this morning. And when I was doing that, I saw that there are a couple of channels that are putting out the leaks for 608. So I just wanted to,
Oh, no.
I meant to say this earlier, but I just wanted to bring it up again. Please don't tell me what happens in the comments of 608. If I wanted to find that information, if other people wanted to find that information, they could go look for it. I'd prefer to watch it as it was intended, and just sort of experience it for myself rather than having somebody else tell me about it. But yeah, I watched your video because I knew we were doing this today, and you mentioned this Lalo Mike, whose voice was it? The debate that went on, and that was pretty much the big takeaway I had from this in the beginning. Like I watched it on my phone while I was scrolling Twitter. First couple of times whenever I, played it, I didn't have the sound. So when I turned the sound on, I was already thinking about the lab and already thinking about Mike and Gus. So it did sound like Mike to me initially. And then later, Tom Schnoz came, he confirmed that it was Lalo in the comments. And so we know that's the case. And really the only other thing that happens is that the lights go out, and that brings us back to Gus's time, that where he was there hiding the gun, and it could be a misdirect. He could actually be talking about anyone. My initial thing when I heard it and I thought it was Mike was I thought maybe they were talking about Howard, like his body's there. What to do with you? Knowing it's Lalo, like I said, and like you pointed out in your video, I mean, it does hint that this showdown is going to happen at the lab, but we kind of already knew that. The big question is, how do they get there? And none of it really makes sense because, it depends on what happens in that apartment. What kind of impression did this leave on you?
So it is kind of crazy how the teaser makes it seem like we get that confrontation between Lalo and Gus and Mike down in the superlab, even after the show subverted our expectations in 607 by having Lalo go to Jimmy and Kim instead due to his original plans being compromised. And I've discussed this a few times on my channel. I have a whole video about what Lalo's plans are for Jimmy and Kim and why he's confronting them, how he's going to use them, how Jimmy and Kim are going to get out of this situation alive. But going back to that 605 gun that Gus planted, I feel like it does have to come to fruition somehow. And it is kind of weird thinking of Gus using a gun to kill. As I've kind of said in my videos, he's never really used a gun on screen. He only uses his hands to kill as an intimidation tactic. And if Gus wants someone killed with a gun, that's what he has people for, like Mike or Tyrus or any of his other men. I do like the idea that people have been saying in the comments about how truly the whole Mike versus Lalo situation and dynamic, I feel like it would be more suitable for Mike to actually take down Lalo for Gus instead of Gus doing it himself. Now, I believe that Mike waited upstairs while Gus planted the gun, so I don't know if he just tells him about it off screen or what the deal with that is. You'd think that Mike would have a gun on himself anyways. We know that it's just Tyrus's crew at the laundromat, so if Lalo goes in to kill everyone, we know that he won't kill Tyrus because he has that Breaking Bad plot armor. Maybe they'll take him as a hostage to lure Gus there, but I don't really think Gus would care enough to risk himself for Tyrus. I did see a theory in my comments, however, that maybe Tyrus fails to protect the superlab, causing him to get demoted, while Mike gets promoted for taking care of Lalo himself. And I do, again, love the dynamic between Lalo and Mike, or Michael. I feel like Lalo has sort of grown a liking to him, maybe even just in an ironic way. But I would love for them to have one final confrontation between, or maybe even multiple between each other, possibly elaborating on that dynamic more, because I think that those two characters could work wonders together on screen.
I think I have the opposite view on that. Like, I think I understand what you're saying about Gus not using a gun, but I think that also makes it kind of more exciting if he does do that here, and it would possibly catch Lalo off guard. You know what I mean? Like, we would expect it. He would be expecting, his guys to protect him, and that might be the way that he gets the upper hand. I don't understand. I can't imagine a way that they get down there together unless they just catch Lalo. I mean, I can't see Mike walking down there armed if Lalo's in control of the situation at all. Like, it seems like the way you said, that they set this up, like they made a big deal of Gus being able to count out the steps to where it's at from that light. I thought that the actual plug was just a reference point because nothing's going to move in there. But people pointed out in the comments of my videos that maybe that's how he turns the lights off, which is pretty obvious. But and I hadn't really thought of it. But then you see him find that he walks his way over to where he's going to find it. But even with all of that seeming completely sensible and obvious, there still is that idea of how does he shoot somebody in the dark? Like, it's not an easy thing to do. So it's pretty fascinating how there's just so much of it that doesn't really make sense, but it also seems absolutely inevitable. Like you're saying, why have that setup scene? Why have this teaser if it doesn't all come down to something happening there and that playing a part in that,
Yeah, and it's all about how, if we do have this confrontation in the super lab, it's really all about how they get there, right? Does Lalo go there first and he lures them there, or maybe they capture Lalo somehow and bring him there themselves as sort of a spot to, it all depends where they confront Lalo and how that situation goes down. I don't know, if they confronted him somewhere privately, they could just kill him there instead of bringing him to the super lab, but I'm not too sure. I definitely feel like that gun has to come to fruition. I feel like it is just a classic Chekhov's gun, and I don't think that they would have thrown that scene in there as a red herring. And also, just to clarify with the whole Gus using a gun thing, just because we haven't seen him do it before doesn't mean that he can't, right? Like, he definitely still can. He could just shoot Lalo, and that could be that. It could be as simple as that. But I just like thinking about the idea of how Gus has never actually done that before on screen, and that he usually has other people do it for him, while when he does kill, it's for a very different reason.
Do you have any? I mean, to me, I've been on the record as saying that I think there's absolutely zero chance that Lalo gets out of this alive, this phase of the story. Are you holding on to any idea that maybe this is not going to be the end of Lalo?
Well, I mean, just the fact that I love Tony Dalton so much and I love seeing Lalo on screen, I kind of want his character.
I mean, I get that too. I mean, I'm in the same boat there. But I mean, story-wise, as far as, speculating on what's going to happen, do you think it makes sense if Lalo gets out of this part of the story alive?
Right, yeah. So just to directly answer that, no, I don't think so. I think that Lalo is going to die within the next few episodes. I don't really think that he's going to make it into the Gene timeline or any of those theories. I was just kind of saying that, just my likeness for Lalo and Tony Dalton is kind of affecting how long I want him to survive. Same with in regards to Nacho. I mean, I would have loved to see him in more of the season. I knew he was probably going to die eventually, but would have been nice to see more of Nacho just because he was my favorite character from Better Call Saul. But yeah, no, I don't think that Lalo is going to survive too much longer, sadly. I think that does have to conclude somehow. And I think that Gus has to know that Lalo's dead going into Breaking Bad because he tells Hector that he's the last Salamanca at one point. And, ever since season 5 or 4, Better Call Saul, there's been the theory that maybe, Lalo goes into hiding and then he pops out in the Gene timeline. But I just don't think that he's able to fake his death again and go through that whole rigmarole again. I do honestly think that Lalo is probably dead by the time that we get to Gene or even Breaking Bad.
Yeah, and I kind of want the conclusion of the series to be about Jimmy, aka Saul, and possibly Kim if she's still there. Or I imagine that whatever happens with them is going to be affecting what happens in the end. I don't really need, Lalo was a great character. He played his role. He really spiced things up. He was a scene stealer, and I'm really glad that he was involved. But what happens to him isn't really intertwined with the end of the story of Jimmy McGill.
Yeah.
I think there's plenty to explore in that on its own.
Just have we talked about Lalo, like the dialogue possibly being Lalo talking about Howard's body?
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of brushed over it earlier. Like I said, he could be talking about anyone here. It could be, he could be talking about Gus. He could be talking about Mike. He could be talking about Howard, Jimmy, and Kim, pretty much everyone that's still alive. And they have been kind of misleading with teasers before. And they've also not really established a time frame with any of the ones that they've shown after 607. Do you think this one hints that the showdown's coming sooner rather than later?
Yeah, well, I was just wondering if the whole "what to do with you" happens during a different moment, if this is some trailer trickery being spliced together with just the clip of the superlab with the lights turning off specifically during the trailer, just spliced together to get us thinking. It would be interesting if Lalo was talking about what to do with Howard's body, but I think that he'd leave Jimmy and Kim to clean that mess up after, potentially or probably keeping them alive. And I wonder, I did touch on this more in my other videos, but I wonder if Jimmy and Kim do say that they've been interacting with Mike, or if they kind of use Nacho as a fall guy. Now the comments pointed out to me in my video that I don't think Jimmy and Kim know that Nacho is dead. Because he would be the perfect fall guy for them to use, since he was already to blame for the assassination attempt and yada, yada, yada. So I'm thinking that maybe Lalo could just kind of casually mention that Nacho was blamed for it and that he's dead, and then Jimmy and Kim could possibly use that to their advantage. Because, as we've discussed kind of behind the scenes and probably in previous live streams, Jimmy and Kim do need to not only give Lalo enough information to get him off of their back, but they need to prove themselves to be worthy of being kept alive. So, as you said, Lalo doesn't just kill them alongside Howard, even after getting information out of them.
Yeah, I think you're right. They don't know that Nacho died. I don't think there's any way they could find that out. And he is a likely scapegoat because, there's some potential there. For his name to come up, I guess, or something along those lines, or a discussion about that. I think we kind of covered everything we need to on this teaser. Is there anything else that you're thinking about before we move on?
No, I think that pretty much does it.
One other thing is they did have the for your consideration stuff. They're putting Bob and Ray and Jonathan Banks out for Emmy talk, and I hope that they actually just give them all the Emmys already. I mean, I think that the second half of this season will be eligible the next time because of the way that it's broken up. But I really hope we get to see some recognition on that front at the end of this.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. Long story short, I think it's criminal how much they get snubbed at the Emmys, especially during season 5. And I really hope that all of these amazing actors get the recognition that they deserve for season 6, along with all of the creators, the writers, the directors, all of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so top notch, and there's a lot of other stuff that goes into it. So like, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole and talk out of school about it, but I did want to bring that up. Give them the Emmys already, and I think we can wrap things up here. Thanks for coming and talking about this stuff. I thought it would be a decent conversation. I think we had that.
I just wanted to say thanks for having me on for the video. It was really fun discussing all of this. I do love kind of just theorizing about the show in general on Twitter, whether to other creators or just, viewers of the show in general. So it was really nice to come on here sort of halfway through the mid-season break and just discuss where we're at, discuss what we're thinking, and how we think that the rest of the season's going to go down. So again, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. And yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And so if you're watching, just let us know in the comments what you think about all this new stuff, what you think about this format in general. I've thought about doing some other ones with different people that have come on over time when we do the live stream. So let me know what you think about that, and definitely give the Vivid Kiwi channel a look. I'll put the links in the description. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.